Welcome to the Step Stories podcast. I'm your host, Robin Breuner, and my guest today, Donna Kendrick, brings a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience in the financial world of blended families to our show. She herself is a mother and stepmother to 6 kids. Welcome, Donna. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I really am.
Well, me too, because I know you have. I'm really excited to hear everything you have to talk about. But let me tell our listeners a little bit more about you. You are the host of the podcast Widow, Wisdom, and Wealth, and the author of A Guide to Widowhood: Navigating the First 3 Years, which became an Amazon bestseller. Congratulations on that.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
And now you've expanded that into a series called the Life Stages Financial Guides, and that supports readers through significant life changes, including remarriage and blending families, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's very impressive. So to be able to write a book and more than one book and a podcast, and I know the work involved, and to have a full-fledged career as a financial consultant. So I want to talk about how all this came to be. I know that this kind of started after you lost your first husband, Greg, and in 2013, right? And you had to navigate through widowhood with 3 young kids. So I'd love you to tell your story and tell us how this all came to be and how you managed this incredibly challenging time.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. And yeah, we'll pick it up right there. So in 2013, I was born and raised in the Philadelphia area. So was my husband, Greg. We had traveled abroad with his work. And so we lived in Rome off and on for about 7 years and never thought we'd get back to family and friends in the Philadelphia area. But in 2013, we did. And we moved into the little suburb of Philadelphia. And 2 to 3 months after he moved us all back down because he had gotten repositioned with work. We lost him. He passed away and he had taken his life. And so it was sudden and it was full of grief and it was full of just the emotions outside of, oh my goodness, I'm on my own now because I had given up my career to follow him abroad. So I'd been out of the workforce for probably about 8 years. I was just working part-time with trying to keep the schedule because he traveled a lot. So I found myself with a young son at 8, a daughter at 11, and another son at 12, the youngest one learning to speak English in schools. And wow, we were the new family. We were that family when that happened. So
Learning to speak English because he or she had learned Italian? Is that why?
he did. Yeah. So our
Okay.
youngest, we actually put him
Okay.
into what we call the nido, which is like the
Mhm.
nest at in Italy. She was only 2 when we got there. So we figured he
Mm.
has the best chance of learning the language before the rest of us. So we immersed him in the Italian school system. By the time, I think it was in 2nd grade when we came back stateside, he had been in a British school at that point in time. So he could do a little
Mm.
of both. But I think his little brain realized that, oh, I get to speak English all the time. But like things like he would fail on the math quiz of like $1.25 because he's like, that's a euro. Like that's what do you mean that's a quarter of a dollar? I'm like, no, it's a coin. It's a dollar. So little things
Interesting.
like that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
interesting to think of that from the perspective of you were American, and so was he, but he was an Italian, but, is learning to speak English like an immigrant who's a native of another country. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and we
But
spoke
I'm
English
curious
at home, but
what
he
you
had
spoke
that.
English. What were you doing yourself? What career did you have before you went over to Italy?
Yeah, so my undergraduate degree was in statistics for business, and I actually did financial forecasting for the pharmaceutical industry. So let's talk about like the money decisions that a couple comes to. So my husband and I were married for many years. We had 2 kids, went to Rome the first time. I continued working at that point in time remotely, well before 2020, and everyone was like learning to Zoom, right? Just knew how to
Right.
do it. Sometimes it was like with a phone dial up and very slow, but we did it. Came back home to the States and then went again when we had James, my littlest one. At that point in time, because of the position he had, and I worked for an international company, it was deemed a conflict of interest since he was with the embassy in Rome. And so I gave that up, and then I actually taught English to Italian preschoolers the entire time I was over there. So they all have Philadelphia accents. I use those as a joke. They all say water. Like there's no G's in their action words. They're running, and I'm proud of it. It's good stuff. But
Love it.
yeah. Yep. Yep. And so yeah, so when we came back home and he passed away, I mean, literally I was still
Mm,
working in the schools trying to mimic his schedule. I think I was making $17,800 and I had just
mm,
lost everyone that was bringing in income. Now let's go back to when we made that money decision. We were both making the same. We call ourselves yuppies, right? Like back where we were both young urban professionals. And we made the decision that I could probably pop back into the career force even after taking a break more easily than he could because he was with the US government. You kind of have to
right.
follow that time and the promotions. But what we didn't know is that the crisis of 2008 was going to happen, and my entire industry, publications for the pharmaceuticals, kind of went
Mm,
away. So when I came
mm.
back, there was no marketplace for what I knew how to do. So I was a little unprepared for that, knowing that after Greg passed, one of those biggest things, the answer to the question you want is, am I going to be okay? And I couldn't say I could because I didn't know what I was going to do next to replace his income. And
Mm.
it was a tough one. So
So you were dealing with not only the shock of his passing, being a widow, your grief, dealing with the grief of your children, and being left to figure out, now what? Now what am I going to do to survive?
yeah.
That's a lot.
It was, and we were blessed and lucky because we worked with a financial advisor before we moved abroad, so we were very young. We were in our young 20s when we got our first financial advisor. We had sold a property, made a nice profit on it. It was before the bubble burst, and didn't know really how to invest. I was financially savvy on how we managed our everyday bills, but I didn't know about the marketplace at that point in time. But it was that financial advisor who actually convinced us to get our estate documents together and to get life insurance. At that point in time, the life insurance was something we paid into because my husband he was law enforcement. He would have to retire well before age 65. So how were we going to pay for some of the health care costs between
Mhm.
57 or 52 and 65? This policy was going to help us do that. Very complicated for a 25-year-old not thinking anything's going to happen.
Of
Fast
course.
yeah, fast forward to when I'm 40 and Greg passes, that life insured got paid out to me as one lump sum. And that's what allowed me to keep my house and to know I could educate my kids. I knew I was strong and I'd figure out the rest of that income, right? Because that's still not enough to take me from 40 to the long Polish lifeline I have of 99, 102. Like we live for a long time. But yeah. But that was it. And so I looked back at like what was the most impactful part, knowing I had to recreate my career of widowhood. It was really my financial advisor and how we switched financial advisors. I learned yesterday at a conference 80% of women who are in widowhood switch their advisors. And so it was just really like,
Why?
wow.
Wait, why
Because
is that?
yeah, no, that was great. That was one of the things they said in the conference. It's because there was either a lack of communication between the old advisor and the new advisor. So they had maybe spoken to the other spouse. That was their
Hmm.
point of contact. And the wife, many of times this is women that they're talking about, not the widowers, that they didn't feel included in the conversation. Another one was a lack of empathy, right? That it was more like the business of the money, not how are you? Are you ready to make this decision right now? Or I don't want to even think about the future because it's too hard to think about the present. So that was one of the main reasons. And the third reason was the fact that not everything was explained to them about the next steps. That was just being pushed forward and there was a lack of control. So those were things that kind of I can't say it was my financial advisor had moved into doing financial planning for small businesses. So he wasn't really the person to hold my hand. So I started looking just by asking around, Facebook groups, right? Asking like, "Oh, I remember that person was a young widow. Let me see if she's okay." And then people would give me the referrals of who they used as an advisor. So I did find the advisor of the one widow I knew with 4 young kids and she seemed to be doing all right. And just was like, who was that? And yeah, and I went around with a big tote bag of all my information to all of these interviews with financial advisors, being like, are you the one? No, you're not. Take my tote bag and go back home. So yeah, and found that person to really just help me slow that roll. What decisions I have to make now? what could I wait for, and what we would take care of for future Donna, not the one that was sitting at his table in tears. So,
But then you
mhm,
became that person,
I
right?
did. Yep, I sat
So
down with him.
yeah, so you had this experience and you talked to all these people who were unhappy with who they
Mhm.
had, and did you have an epiphany like, I should be doing this. I'm the kind of person that I want to find and I think other people would want to find. Is that how did it happen?
Yeah, that was it. I knew I had to recreate my career. I knew what my income I needed to make was. My financial advisor, the new one, had helped me with that. And when I did look back over the 2 years, because I wasn't just going to go ahead and get quote unquote a job, like this huge life change happened. I had a little bit of cushion financially. I have to admit I did. I knew I could spend 2 years trying to kind of recreate things slowly. There was a point in time I knew the money I had to make again to be okay for that long-term financial plan and
Mhm.
keeping everything afloat, right? When maybe my kids aged out of Social Security, and even though they're 18, they're still my kids, right? And how are we going to pay for that?
Yeah.
And really, I looked back on it, and it was my advisor's advice that was the most impactful over those first 2 years. And so I sat down with them, and I was like, I want to do what you did for me. For widows, which then moved into families in transition. And he told me what I had to go back to school for. He let me mentor under him, and then I launched my own company. So it's pretty great. It was a
Interesting.
3-year run, but it was hard, but it was good.
Good. Well, and then, okay, so you focused on widows, and as you mentioned, you moved into families, and that because you met your next husband, Jim, and that affected where you went? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, definitely stayed in my lane, niched my market into like the widows. And then I realized like, oh my God, these divorcees, like, wow. Like I didn't have any experience with it, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I can serve them, right? But then I went and became a CDFA, certified divorce financial analyst. So I could kind of understand what was happening to them. And wow, that just changed everything for me because with my widows, even though they've lost a spouse and they know what their financial outlook is, sometimes for the divorcees, things just keep changing, right? Like there's another person on the other side kind
Right.
of playing the roles. So, yep. And I did. I've remarried in 2022. I actually married my contractor who helped me with my house when I moved after my husband passed.
Oh.
Um, yeah, I know. So he helped with the house. I ran out of money to everyone who's talking. I was not a financial advisor yet. I was still studying, trying to be one, but I couldn't pay him anymore because I knew my budget,
Uh-huh.
right? My spending plan, I'll call it. And so I
So you
was
had to
like, I'm
marry
not,
him because you couldn't pay him? Is
no,
that what
that's
your
not even
drama
it.
was?
Ran out of money, job was done. He went his separate way, and about 2 years later, we got reconnected, and it was fun because he had seen me studying. Like it's very well, I think it's funny, but like whenever I'm like, oh my god, like I'm a little older than him, married younger. I'm just like, oh my god, like you're always seeing me either when like I'm just working late and like 18 hours tired, or in my pajamas and my hair doesn't look so great in the morning. It's like Don King hair. And he's like, no, what you forget is every time I saw you when I was working at your house, you were either coming in for a run with a big bandana tied on. He's like, or literally you didn't shower. You were in your pajamas sitting there studying, being like, hey, how are you? He's like, I don't know what you look like outside of that. So it's fun.
So he
But yeah,
knows
we
the real you.
reconnected.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And
Oh.
I always remember too him sharing me the stories of his divorce, which happened during that point in time where we weren't connected, and
Mm,
some of the like missteps. If I have to look at it from a financial view and inequities between the two of them as they divorced, that mixture of emotions and decisions, right? And so that is one of the reasons we just put out a book called The Divorce Money Map, just trying to say, okay, if you don't have the budget for a really good attorney, but you need to get a foundation of just where you are coming into this discussion and where you want to be on the
mhm.
way out. Here are just pages to fill in the blank, like just something, because that's something he didn't have. And he didn't even know the impact of different buckets of money. But I also say that because the book in the middle called The Blend, A Guide to Blended Families, was a direct result of Jim and I deciding to get married. I was a reluctant person to marry. I was okay with living in sin. I was. And he really wanted to be married. I did love being married. The marriage didn't end in divorce. Married ended because someone passed. But I had become
Mm.
fiercely independent during that time. And because I was also developing a career and a small business, I didn't want it to get complicated with money. And I put the emotions on the side and just followed the decision of I'm not going to lean in again. I'm just going to be okay on my own 2 feet.
I
Um,
imagine that that's pretty common. I see it a lot with people that I know. You've been married, you've got your own independence, you've got your own kids, and sometimes it's easier to keep it all separate versus when you get married. And that's something that I want to talk about more because I know that's what you specialize in is you did get married and you do help people to figure out how to do it best. Well, before we kind of get into the we're still getting into the nitty-gritty of what you advise people, talk to people about. I still want to know a couple last things about blending your family because that is what the podcast is about. So you had 3 kids and I believe he had 3 kids, right?
exactly.
Or he
Yeah.
has 3 kids. Yes.
Yeah, he does. So I have the older 3 and he has the younger
Mm,
3.
okay.
In today's world, and in 2026, they go from 16 to 24. So Jim and I moved in together 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And so all of a sudden, these kids that knew one another, like literally his kids would come play at my house when he was my contractor because he would work nights and weekends. We would play with the kids. Like his kids knew my dogs. Like that was an easy part of the blend because the kids were familiar,
Okay.
but they didn't know how to live together as step siblings. They had no clue. Here comes the pandemic. All the kids are now living together. The 2 big ones come back from college, and we have a house that's busting at the seams because we have 6 kids, 2 dogs, everyone's home, we're working from home, and we have 4 bedrooms. Like, what are we gonna do, right? How quick you convert a basement is really what was happening.
Look,
And then
good thing your husband's a contractor. That's
I was
helpful.
very yeah, right, right? It's very handy. It is.
You're
For
a
anyone
financial
dating out
person, he's
there.
a contractor. Yeah, yeah, that works pretty well.
Yeah, must be good with power tools should be on your dating profile. It's true. So, but yes, that's really where it started with the kids learning to live together and blend together. And then as time goes on, like, yeah, I did want to marry him, right? And he was helping me build my practice too. He gave up his career to become my admin. So we have a carpenter who became my admin in a financial planning business because he had enough faith in us. So it was
Aw.
very sweet. And so we did finally agree to get married, but that was with a lot of understanding of what is mine, what is yours, what is theirs, his kids and my kids, what is ours, what are we building together? And we did a lot of that with the help of actually it was a divorce attorney, 2 of them that helped us create prenups. Because during that point in time, we had also realized or found out that his ex-wife was sick with cancer. So we
Mm,
knew that in time she would probably be passing. We thought we had 5 years. It was just 2 years. And we really had to position all of our kids well to be under the roof together with us as 2 sole parents, and also who's going to pay for what, when, how. So we had already gotten married when all of that started to move, in the direction it was, but that added a whole different feel to why I was
mm,
very happy we had already decided to get married because, wow, if I wouldn't have married him, I would have just been my dad's girlfriend, right? And if I wouldn't have married him, I wouldn't have had rights to them at the school, right? And that
mm.
guardianship that I needed to be a good mom to these younger 3, and though I was a stepmom. But life is busy. We made a lot of moves with schools and houses and things like that to accommodate everyone. Listeners, we now have a house. It was a foreclosure, but again, I married a contractor. Everyone has their own bedroom. That's all I
Aw.
can say. That was so lucky.
I feel
So
like
lucky.
clapping.
I know.
With it, did you have bumps in the road with having all these kids together all the time? Was it fairly were the kids accepting of their step parent, and step siblings? Was it helpful that they were different ages? Like, how did it all blend?
Yeah, I think it was helpful that there were different ages. There are 3 boys, there are 3 girls.
Mm,
Um, and again, because I have the older 3, he has the younger 3, there's a definite balance there. But I think what was also helpful is the fact that my kids experienced the loss of their dad. They experienced the grief of that. They experienced the moves, the constant moves. And so when the younger kids, when their mom got sick, it is almost as if my kids leaned in because they
Mm,
knew what that felt like. And so it was never really that they were siblings. They don't really, they will refer to one another as brother and sister, right? Sometimes they just don't want to explain why there's 6 people and 2 parents and the whole bit.
yeah.
But they are friends first. So we always say
Oh,
my youngest and Jim's oldest are really the bestest. They are
mm,
very sweet. They go to college together, the whole bit. And it's a very kind relationship. So I see them more as friends and as support. I also say that some of the decisions that we had to make as adults, knowing that my stepkids, that their mom was going to pass, when my kids would hear us, we very much have open communication. We'll talk about it at the dining room table. And if you're eavesdropping, well, you just heard it. That's one of the things we have to have a lot of clarity with the messages kids are hearing. Oversensitive things, sure, that's in private. But my kids would lean in and be like, oh, like they're not gonna like the younger kids are they're not gonna lose their mom and have to move school districts to move into our house. Like my older kids were like, you've got, if you can afford it, you've got to move into their district. They had come from a very small school district, like I think 15 kids in each of their classes, maybe
wow.
20 at the most. And they're like, they can't lose their mom and then lose that support system, which
Mm,
is the only thing they've had. And so for my kids to be like, sure, we'll
my
commute to
gosh.
school, do it and do it now. Because they
What?
overheard me and Jim trying to figure it out. Like, do we do an addition and how do we work this? And yeah, it was
What an
so yeah,
It's
they're good
so
kids.
mature and so kind-hearted and just, I'm really absorbing all this and thinking about what life does when you've experienced grief and trauma. It changes you. You see the world differently, and now all those kids see the world differently just because of what they've been through, what your husband and you have been through, and it creates such empathy, and it's I don't know, I think that it's tough to go through that pain and heartache, but as a person, you grow so much. You it's something you can't explain to somebody who hasn't gone through it, but
Yeah,
I'm listening to you, and I can just see it for all of you, and what a blessing that you've had each other.
yeah.
But,
It
it's a blessing your kids were able to help these other kids, your stepkids, and be there for them after what they've been through and vice versa for those kids to lean on them and, anyway, um,
Yeah,
special.
and so I can't say we have any of those stories of like, the kids didn't get along or this or
Yeah.
that or you're not my mom. Honestly, I put myself out there and I don't know if it's right or wrong. And this isn't a financial professional. This is just a mom. Like I
Mm,
really put myself out there as an extra layer of love. They had a mom that loved them dearly, raised them up into their teenage years, and they have their dad, who now they have their dad full time again because they were divorced, right? So now they have their
mm,
dad full time and so I am there as an extra layer of love.
mm.
And the funny part is, like, yeah, there's a push and shove sometimes where you're like, all right, now I got to parent up, right? Like, this has to happen. But to hear my big kids like go to the youngest and be like, ooh, you really got DJ angry. Wait until you see what it feels like. You've never received it. It's almost as if they were like silently clapping in the background, being like, oh, watch what's going to happen next. You have no clue. So it's funny. It adds a joke to it when I'm like, "Oh, no, no, I'm not gonna do that now." But it's
I
good.
love
And I
that.
have to also
That's
say, like, it was fun for my youngest to not be the youngest anymore, right? Like, I
mm.
remember the first time he came home from college, he was like, "Where's our youngest son?" He's like, "Where is he?" I was like, "He's up in bed." He's like, "Oh, good." Went, like, slamming into his room, flipped him out of bed, was wrestling with him on the floor because he was
Oh.
always on the losing end of that battle because he was the youngest. So, it's just it adds such an energy, it adds such a chaos. It was like when we got married in Graceland, we shoved them all into a Suburban, and they had to drive 16 hours from Philly to Graceland to watch us get married, and if that's not gonna bond people, like, one of them's sick, nobody wants to sit next to him, there's Ziploc bags and throw up, and no one complains. Like, that's what the memories are made of. It's true.
Oh. You got married at Graceland? Like
We
Elvis's
did.
Graceland?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
did.
cool. That
Yeah,
is
my husband
very cool.
a big Elvis fan, and, my dad was an Elvis fan, and so, yeah, we got married at, Monday morning. It's not cheesy, like, you can't have an Elvis impersonator. It was like it's a wedding in the woods, a chapel in the woods. There's, I think, a Lifetime movie about it, but it was actually quite beautiful, little white chapel with woods in the background. We got
I
married on a
love
Monday
it.
morning at 10:30, and we were just us and the kids, and so here 35 of our family and friends came, like cousins, people I lived with in Rome, my late husband's family. What a blessing that is, like, to
Mhm.
have your late
Yeah.
husband's family adopt this new family as theirs, which they do. Like, that's where we spend
Mhm.
our Easters, that's where we spend our extended summer vacations, and they treat my stepkids as if they were always, quote, unquote, "a Kendrick." So, it's kinda neat.
Uh, you really come from a family of wise people, mature people, and people with big hearts because that doesn't always happen. But I know those are their grandchildren and they want them to be your children are their grandchildren as well, and I'm sure they want them
Yeah.
to be happy anyway. I shouldn't make assumptions, but it sounds that
Yeah, yeah.
way.
Oh, we're very sarcastic too. I mean, it's tough, right? You have to have a thick skin,
Yeah.
but build some character, I'll give you that. So
Well, okay, let's talk a little bit about because you have so much to put out there and to talk about. Let's talk about because we're on the blended, family subject. What kind of things do you do to support blended families? I know there's something you have 5 things a couple should consider before blending families and merging assets. There's all kinds of things I know you can talk about how
yeah.
to keep things separate. So I'll just let you talk and give your
Yeah.
advice,
Well, I think
your
a lot of it
wisdom.
is 1, making an inventory of thank you, if we try. But no, of taking an inventory of everything you have, everything your spouse, soon to be spouse has. We'll just say it as if you are married already. So what you have, what your spouse have, as well as what your kids might have, because some of our kids walk with assets, either from a parent that passed, right? Or from savings they might have gotten from their own natural grandparents or gifting, right? Like they might have that 529s that might have been created from a charity. So, really, where is everything? Who's the owner? Who's the beneficiary? The next thing is I have to say, once you find that, and that's just documenting your assets, also documenting their liabilities. Some of us come to a relationship with debt. Some of us come with assets. It's not always plus plus in that side, right? Like I married somebody who came from a divorce and was starting over again, right? Very different. So, what else do we have for liabilities? Is there a mortgage still on the house? What's that mortgage rate? Is this our forever home? Can we age into it? Those are some of the bigger discussions, but you want to know what you own and what you owe and whether that balance out if everything is a shared asset. The next thing I always say to do is then to go get a bunch of highlighters and then sit there independently. Both of you have a copy of it and circle what is mine. What do I need to keep in my name? And what do I want to protect for my kids? What is yours? What is ours? And were we okay making ours? Because you can, with joint titling, turn something that is just yours into ours, if that makes sense. You can put
Mhm.
someone's name on the title, and now they have half of the asset of that house. And what seems reasonable? I really like that activity, doing it separate. Once you have the same net worth and liabilities, everyone's looking at that same, because that's where the conversation. Wait, why? The answer is why. Why did that house become pink? How come it's not purple for both of us, right? I and that's that discussion. So now you know exactly what you're talking about. Where are you not on the same wavelength, or maybe you are? The other thing I love to recommend everyone do is actually pull their credit report. Go on annualcreditreport.com. Everyone can independently get a copy of their credit report 3 times a year with no fee. But get that credit report. It's not going to tell you your FICO score. It's going to tell you what accounts in your name, what accounts might still be in your name and your late spouse's, what accounts are open, what are closed, what might have credits against them. And then, just like you traded that net worth and the liabilities, you trade that credit report. You need to be open about what was in your past, what's in your future, and how you regard money. And that tells a lot sometimes. Most of the time, it's a okay, but you might find a few accounts that still have your late husband's name on it. Or maybe you weren't married before, but you had a girlfriend back in 1990 and her name was on a credit card. Like, what does that look like? Doing the
Yeah.
same thing with your life insurances, making sure you have those beneficiary designations clear and that you two agree upon that, right? Is all that 401k money, IRA money going to you as my spouse? Is it going to my kids because it was here before marriage? Or is it going to all of our kids? Those are those discussions, and that's hard. It doesn't happen in an hour because you're going through those layers of what do you want to create together and who do you want to protect? And that can have a big emotional level to it.
Oh, yeah. Do you work with an estate attorney in conjunction with a state attorney when you're helping them devise this? And also, you were saying, well, let's assume they're already blended. Do you advise doing this before they get married, or is it
I do
okay to
like
do it
doing it
after they're married?
before they get married,
Yeah.
just for talking. I was gonna say husband and wife, but no, like Jim and I had to know that the finances were clear and that we were on the
Mm.
same page before I would say yes. That was really
Mhm.
important to me. Prenups have to be done before you say yes. So I do recommend all of that happen beforehand. And yes, an estate attorney to lean into because they will help you, or a divorce attorney or a general attorney with that prenup if that's what you're going for. And how you always see on Lifetime movies, I'll say again, like, oh, I'm not going to marry him because of the prenup. A prenup, many of times, is just that outline of that net worth and that liabilities of what am I coming into here with? And if God forbid so happens, can I walk with what I came into with? Right? Like, or those
Mhm.
agreements of it. That's really a lot of what it is. It's a lot of just clarity, not like I get everything should you go. It's a little bit different at times. So I really recommend everyone do it beforehand.
And in your experience, have you dealt more often with younger people getting married and blending families? Or what about people who are getting married at a later age who have adult children? And how do you advise working with that? Because that gets really sticky when somebody passes away and there's a step parent involved, and then you add another layer of that person has kids, and maybe the kids didn't grow up together, and now you've got this complicated. So how do you work with that?
Yeah, that's very good. It's two very different situations. Everything I'm
Mhm.
modeling is probably this younger family, right? This family that's going to grow together. But you're
Mhm.
right. If you have someone that's either a gray divorce, right? And now it's walking with assets with these adult kids, many of the time they look at it as, wait, that's my dad's assets, right? Like you're now marrying and giving that to someone else. Many of times we have small businesses that are impacted, small family businesses where the spouses, even though they're not together anymore, either through someone passing or divorce, uh, when the spouse that wasn't the original family has a piece of it. And so then, should they get married, if they don't title that correctly, next thing you know, should that spouse pass, the new husband or the new wife has a piece of the first family's small business. We've seen it happen. And so then you're saying, I'm trying to protect this, right? How do we have this conversation? And it becomes a little less private because now you have another layer of the family. You have the adult kids in somebody's ear. Where do we go with that? A lot of times it's if you have a professional, an estate attorney, an accountant, or a financial advisor. I always say kind of use that financial advisor as your project manager. They'll bring in those other colleagues that they need, but have them sit and have a family conversation. One, in most cases, everyone behaves nicer when there's someone else in the room, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of chit chat in the car after that family meeting, a
Yeah.
lot. Remember that the people that are quiet probably have the biggest voice in the family, right? Watch that, right? And I think that's good to know for every spouse that's there because you have to think the mom and the dad of these adult kids have a long experience with these kids. They know their mannerisms. The new spouse that's marrying in does not have maybe 30 years of experience, right? And I think having someone else guide that, but before the advisor sits down, both that couple about to get married, what are the top two things they or three things that they want to walk from this conversation with? Whether it's clarity of they're going to be okay and we are going to share assets to take care of somebody as they age. That's one of the biggest ones. Very different conversation from my younger families. Who's going to take care of whom and whose assets are going to support a long life and aging? And that's what the adult kids are really worried about many of times.
Mhm. Well, what are some of the more common issues that sometimes get overlooked, when people are planning this? What do what do people not wanna deal with or forget about?
I think a lot of it is probably the family home. So if the couple doesn't buy a home together in their own name, I think it might be my home and he just lives there. Like that's a
Mm,
hard conversation. Or if you say, and I'll be very open, that's how Jim and I have it. Like I own the home, but if something happens to me, that I have a life insurance policy to help him support the home. And that is where we use life insurance if you can be insured to support that. But he gets to stay here until he either dies or he gets remarried. I had to put the line there, right? And then after that, the asset becomes my kids.
okay.
So that's really hard, right? Because we are now saying it's our family's home, right? And wait, does it go to just my kids or is it going to go to his 3 kids too? Because they might still be living here. What does that look like? So
Yeah.
that's something that we revisit every year, even after we've gotten married, because he's put blood, sweat, and tears into this house because it was foreclosure and needed a lot of work. So he's got a vested interest in it. But then his concern is, but wait, something happens to you. I'm the blockade between the kids and them getting the asset of the
Mhm.
house.
Mhm.
So how are they gonna regard me there? Right? Are they gonna
Mhm.
just, like, can't wait for him to move out? Like, I don't know, but that's a concern for him. It is. And I
Have you talked to your kids about it? I mean, are they aware that this is the situation so that if something did happen, it wouldn't come as a shock?
yes, my adult
Yeah.
kids are very open to it, and,
Okay.
yeah, very, very open to the fact that they know and they've seen other family members work it this way, so it's just Jim's house, and by the time that happens, by the time he passes or remarries, then, yeah, you'll figure it out, but it's Jim's house. Um, yeah. Yeah, but of course, then you have my husband also saying, like, "Yeah, if they start treating me bit like, mean, they can have the house back, but he's gonna dismantle the house." He's like, "All this beautiful crown molding, I put that up, that's gonna go with me." Like, so it's an open,
Oh.
sarcastic joke. He's like, "Oh, yeah, you'll get a house back in the same condition I got here." And they're like, "But it didn't there was no flushing. There was no septic lines." He's like, "Oh, I can dig."
Gosh. Yep,
It's
that's the
brutal.
benefit of having a contractor. Well, I'm curious, you made a comment about, it's his unless he remarries, and so how often do you advise people to include that so that if somebody remarries, then, it goes to the assets go to like, your children in this
The
case.
next
What do you
generation.
say about that?
Yeah, I think that's when let's go back to the very first step of figuring out your net worth and your liabilities, right? What do I own and what do I owe? And circling that, being like, okay, that's in my name. That's the next
Mhm,
step of, okay, then what happens when you pass? So you're working with an attorney if you can and need to do the prenup. But no matter what, you're having this conversation up front. Once you get married, one of the first things you should do post honeymoon is go to that estate attorney and get new estate documents created because now it's just not mine and yours. Now it's us together. And those things that
mhm,
we agreed on that would be growing as an asset of ours, how do we keep it there? I think the one really hard part is in most relationships, step parents or not, there's person that has a little bit more financial awareness, a little bit more savvy than the other person. And that's why I like these activities, because even if someone isn't quite aware of everything they have going on, or even interested or too trusting, we're going to have other layers of these professional colleagues that are to come in and help. Because we don't want someone being like, oh, I just trust them and it's going to work. Like, we need some
mm,
clarity in there. Let's talk about those adult kids. They're going to be asking for that clarity. They're worried that mom at 75 who's remarrying is going to get taken advantage of and they want to protect her. It's not many people are like greedy kids and the whole bit. No, sometimes it's just love their parent. They miss their other parent or miss that relationship and they don't want to see them get hurt again. Right. So that's where a lot of it comes from. But yeah, that is really revisiting it and being very, very clear. Get a good estate attorney. Lots of those apps online where you can create your own will. We have some of them in our own practice and they're good for the basics. But when things get a little dicey or more complicated, you have to be very specific, very specific.
I think that's great advice, and I think we're coming to the end of the interview, but I think that that's really good advice, and I'm glad you've put this out into the world because I've had my own experiences with parents passing and different step parents and different things, and it's very painful when you don't know what's happening and you don't know what the plan is. And I think it's really important to be open with everybody
Yeah.
so that everybody knows what's going to happen and everybody can grieve properly if somebody passes. Um, and and there's no surprises and there's
Yeah.
no wounds and pains and people can speak in advance and talk about their feelings. So I really, really appreciate this advice that you're giving. And I'm just curious, do you have anything else we didn't talk to that you talk about? Sorry, it's late in the day. That
Yeah.
we didn't talk about that you would like to share that is important?
I think one of the big things to remember, because not every family I'm lucky, right? All our stepkids get along, right? And we seem to be in our rhythm, right? But there's always going to be changes in life. There's always going to be outside influences, and sometimes families get estranged, right? All of a sudden, they're not talking to one another. Like we always say, like long-term care situations, there's usually one kid that wants it this way, another adult child that wants it the other way, and then there's a rift, right? It's happened in my own family. So one thing I always want everyone to remember is when you are of sound mind, make it very clear and maybe have an outside person be that executor or that power of attorney or something. But just have a role in keeping the peace through the family when they're not that person that's committed. If that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah,
So
it
if God
does.
forbid the family's estranged and, your mom passes and your step siblings are making the decisions over her remains because they're closest. Ooh, that's going to hurt. It's going to sting.
Hmm.
So truly have a third person that's kind of outside of the family dynamic, almost being like a safeguard for you all. I recommend that.
Mm. Mm. That's great advice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Donna. Anything exciting going on with you as we end this that you're looking forward to? Another book or what's
No,
going
not
on?
no, we're good with the books for right now. I mean, I'm just happy it is, May and all of our big kids are coming home from college, and so, like I said, I like the chaos, so this year we've only had 2 of the 4 in the house, and we're gonna have 4 back, for the summer, so I can't wait for it. It's gonna be great.
And you've got Mother's Day this weekend.
Should be
So hopefully
fun.
you will be honored by all these 6 kids and I just want to say please listen to Donna's podcast. She has so much more wisdom and it's called Widow Wisdom and Wealth. And also check out her Life Stages financial guides for more information because this is good stuff. So thank you for being here again and I'd love to have you back in the future because I feel like we have so much more we could talk about.
I know. We're just peeling the onion a little bit, so
I
thank you for
know. I
having me,
agree.
Robin. You're a great
Sure.
hostess.
Sure. Thank you. And we'll see everybody next week for another episode of Step Stories. Bye.